involved in this world of evolution, but not a part of it.
I'm not saying that there's a world of evolution in any sense of the word at all, except change within limits. But when I'm talking about species like this, I'm talking about, yes, extinct monkeys. For instance, how many ever heard of Lucy? The Lucy fossil. That's Australopithecus afarensis. Lucy here is in the middle of this chart, which comes from Newsweek of 2007. It's very, very recent, up-to-date information. And you can see that the shaded areas are the period which the species is known to have existed based on fossil evidence. This is actually the layers in the rock. Evolutionists would call these millions of years, 4 million years, 5 million years, 6 million years, 7 million years ago. And it's at this depth in the rock that Lucy was found. The white shaded area represents actual evidence, facts, data, which creationists do not disagree with. You know, a lot of people think creationists don't believe in dinosaurs, and we don't believe that these little monkeys existed. Creationists believe that the Creator made humans and monkeys, no monkey humans. But we do have a whole lot of different kind of monkeys that are extinct now. And Lucy would be one, 3.5 feet tall, 65 pounds, and a brain 1/3 the size of ours, sounds like a monkey, and couldn't walk upright like a human. Then there's the Sahelanthropus tchadensis that we mentioned, and Homo erectus is out of the running, those two because of DNA. And all of these are actually, these are a side branch that evolutionists never did think we evolved from. Homo neanderthalensis, or Neanderthal man, is now considered Homo sapiens neanderthalensis, just a subspecies of us. Their brains were bigger, they could talk, they had art, religion, and music, and they were not, in any sense, some sort of missing link. Heidelberg man has just recently, since this article came out, been reassigned the designation of an archaic Homo sapiens. Notice there are no dotted lines in the imagined flow of evolution leading from Lucy to Homo sapiens, us. There's a break right here. A problem with Africanus is that it's a million years later in the story, but looks more like a monkey than Lucy does. National Geographic just said evolution just went backwards. You see, to answer your question, I'm seeing these as extinct monkeys, like extinct dodo birds, the extinct European lion, the moa, and the T-Rex. There are many different kinds of creatures that did diversify, but within those limits that microevolution has. And that these things are not monkey people. They're either people or monkeys. It's clear this is a person. We're still fighting over what the Isle of Flores hobbit fossils really were, probably acromplastic dwarfs, or maybe they were microencephalic, and there was a gene there who's still wondering what they really were, but they seemed to be intelligent and people, even though they were short like hobbits. And so really there's nothing left. This is now an archaic human. The only thing left in this story that hasn't been shot down by different analytical techniques as being the missing link is Homo antecessor. And you can see that the bar for how much actual data exists to substantiate what it was like is very, very slight. So I hope I didn't go too over, but I hope I also did answer your question. How do I see these things? Extinct monkeys.
Where did this chart come from?
Here.
Okay, thank you.
You keep talking about the missing link, but the stuff I've read, there's no such thing as missing link. It's, you know, our domestic dogs today are still directly related to wolves. You know, they can still breed with each other. But you can look at a wolf and you look at a teacup chihuahua. If you just had these two fossils, you think, well, there's no way. Where's the missing link? There is no missing link. I mean, it's breeding, you know, and they're still species. I mean, they're not speciated with each other. You can still breed wolves and dogs together.
You're right.
But it seems like the main gist of your argument here is evolution too complex to come up with I mean, is you know, a bunch of protoplasm floating around in the soup. Life is too complex to come from there to here in 3.5 billion years. Is that the gist of your argument?
Oh no, I would never say that the complexity issue is the downfall of evolution. Because evolution has a theory about the complexity. It is based on the assumption that random mutations can write new genetic material that actually makes sense above and beyond the way the species was to begin with. Natural selection could then weed out things that worked and keep things that did. But natural selection, it's been said, can explain the survival of the fittest. It can tell you why certain wildebeests survive. They're faster, can run away from the lions. But how you got wildebeests and lions in the beginning cannot be explained by natural selection. It only is a screening process, and it's not a creative process. Stephen Jay Gould said that. And so what still remains in the evolution theory is how to produce the raw material for evolution. And what I'm saying is, for natural selection work, what I'm saying is that complex or not, you can't get even moderate complex code to be written that's meaningful when you tamper with it by accidental mutations. I can see it happening in viruses. We see it all the time. We observe that. I can see it happening in bacteria to some extent, a lesser extent. We do see that. We don't see, and indeed if you were to dig up a teacup chihuahua and a timber wolf, you would never think that those two were related unless you somehow did the DNA testing and found out. Of course, there are mechanical reasons why timber wolves and chihuahuas don't mate. There are social reasons why they don't mate. Probably one would have the other for a meal instead is what would happen. But wolves, hyenas, jackals, foxes, and dogs are all interfertile. We would say as creationists that the Creator made dogs, and that was them. And two dogs got off Noah's Ark, and we got all these things and could get all these things because dogs are so very plastic in their genetics. They're so variable. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but one of my problems is if it's, you're saying that correct, it's Creator. I mean, I don't want to get off topic, but if...
This is what the question answers for.
You go back to the Creator thing. If the world is too complex to come out of anything, then how can you have a pre-existing entity created at all? But I really want to get off.
Well, that actually gets into a philosophical question about infinity. If there is a God, whether you're an atheist or a believer or not, if there's a God, it'd have to be infinite, or what kind of God is that? Richard Dawkins even said, if there was a God, the God would have to be so incredibly beyond us, you shouldn't even start to try and conceive of it. So infinity is not something we can conceive. We make a sideways 8 and we think we're on top of this thing. Total arrogance and ignorance, really. Blameless ignorance, but ignorance. We also cannot conceive of nothing. We cannot conceive of, before the evolutionist theory of the Big Bang, that there was no space. We can think of empty space because we consider air to be that, even though it's not. So I'm saying that God wouldn't need to be made. And that seems out of our framework, but so is the Big Bang. However the world, the universe got started, however life got on this planet, it's incredibly fantastical and does take faith. I don't care what you believe about how life and the universe and this planet got here. It takes faith, and there's no faith in something. You put your faith in whatever you want, But if Marilyn Vosavant said, be always ready to give some sort of a rationale to your argument, otherwise all you have is an opinion.
Well, it seems like a lot of your argument here is just finding holes in the evolutionist argument.
That's a debate.
Okay. Well, I thought this is what it is.
Yeah, and I can give genetic support for the creation model also, but that I can do that if you would like me to, but that would be another talk, of course.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm coming now from an area which I absolutely have no insight. I'm learning a lot from both of your presentations, and you're making it very clear that this does need to be taken seriously by our youth. Science, not run from it, but get involved with it. I'm coming from a different perspective. If I'm understanding what you're saying, you do not have a lot of disagreement with evolution in the micro sense.
Because we see it.
Within a species.
Yeah, we see that all the time. That's clear.
So what's the difference with macro? Is that simply that it moves from one species to a specific, an additional species? Is that what macro in your definition is?
With